Welcome to the Network Plus Prepcast, your dedicated audio companion for mastering every objective on the CompTIA Network Plus certification exam. This series is produced by baremetalcyber.com. The integrity of local area networks is critical because many attacks originate not from the internet, but from inside the trusted boundary. Attackers who gain access to the internal network can exploit its assumptions of trust to intercept, disrupt, or manipulate communications. Techniques like spoofing and rogue device deployment are especially dangerous because they operate silently and often blend in with legitimate traffic. Since these attacks don't rely on breaking into firewalls or perimeter defenses, they can be hard to detect unless proper monitoring and access control mechanisms are in place. This episode focuses on three key threats to the local network: ARP spoofing, MAC spoofing, and rogue devices. These threats directly affect how devices identify each other on the network and how traffic is routed or filtered. Understanding these techniques is crucial both for preventing data breaches and for identifying vulnerabilities that might appear on the exam. Each of these threats involves identity deception, whether it's claiming someone else's IP address, spoofing a MAC address, or plugging in an unauthorized device. ARP spoofing is a method where an attacker sends forged address resolution protocol replies on a local area network. These replies contain false information that maps the attacker's MAC address to the IP address of a legitimate host. Since ARP is a trust-based protocol with no authentication, the attacker's data becomes accepted by the switch or host. As a result, traffic intended for the legitimate device is redirected to the attacker, giving them access to sensitive communication. The consequences of ARP spoofing can be severe. Once the attacker has inserted themselves into the traffic flow, they can capture data in a classic man-in-the-middle scenario. This opens the door for credential theft, session hijacking, and packet manipulation. In some cases, the attacker might simply intercept data for monitoring, while in others they may alter or block traffic, disrupting communication between devices that are unaware of the deception. Detecting ARP spoofing requires awareness of unexpected network behavior. One red flag is the appearance of duplicate IP address alerts, where two different devices claim the same address. Another is when the MAC address associated with a known IP suddenly changes. To catch these events, network administrators can use monitoring tools that track ARP replies and verify them against expected IP to MAC pairing. More advanced solutions include ARP inspection features that reject suspicious mappings. Let's go to Andrew. MAC spoofing is a related tactic in which an attacker changes the MAC address of their device to mimic a trusted device on the network. Since many access controls and filtering systems rely on MAC addresses for identity, spoofing a valid one allows the attacker to bypass these controls. This type of attack undermines basic trust assumptions and enables unauthorized access without needing to compromise passwords or firewalls. Common uses for MAC spoofing include bypassing MAC address filtering, which is often used on wireless networks or switch ports to limit access to known devices. An attacker may also impersonate a specific host to gain higher privileges or to continue operating after their original device was blocked. Because MAC addresses are relatively easy to discover through packet sniffing, this form of identity theft can be executed with minimal effort. The techniques used for MAC spoofing are often simple and accessible. Many operating systems allow users to change the MAC address via software settings. More advanced methods use network tools that forge frames with altered MAC addresses. These spoofing attempts are typically performed directly from a connected device, making them difficult to detect without proper monitoring and logging in place. A rogue device is any unauthorized piece of equipment that has been connected to the network. These can include wireless access points, unmanaged switches, or even seemingly harmless devices like laptops or smart TVs. What makes a device rogue is not its hardware, but the fact that it bypasses the organization's authorization and monitoring process. Once connected, a rogue device can be used to launch attacks or to exfiltrate sensitive data without detection. There are many types of rogue devices, and not all are intentionally malicious. Some might be added by employees seeking convenience, such as plugging in their own wireless access points or USB switches. Others include laptops brought from home, unvetted personal phones, or even compromised IoT devices. Because these devices often lack proper controls, they can serve as launching points for larger attacks, or serve as collection nodes for data theft. Entry points for rogue devices are usually places that lack physical or logical controls. Unsecured wall jacks in public areas, guest conference rooms, or lightly monitored data closets are common access points. In some cases, rogue devices are inserted into compromised switches or hubs, making them even harder to find. Without tight port-level controls, it's easy for an attacker or unwitting insider to introduce new hardware into the environment. For more cyber content and books, please check out cyberauthor.me. Also, there are other podcasts on cybersecurity and more at baremetalcyber.com. To prevent ARP spoofing attacks, network administrators can implement dynamic ARP inspection, often abbreviated as DAI. This feature allows switches to intercept all ARP messages and verify that the IP to MAC mappings are consistent with a trusted database. When enabled, DAI can drop any suspicious or forged responses, effectively stopping spoofing attempts. Another method is to use static IP to MAC binding in critical segments, which locks device identities to known addresses. Segmenting the network and isolating sensitive areas reduces the impact if spoofing does occur. Preventing MAC spoofing starts with implementing port security on switches. This allows administrators to define how many MAC addresses are allowed on a given port and to specify exactly which MAC addresses are valid. If a new or unknown MAC appears, the port can be shut down or restricted. In addition to limiting the number of devices, ongoing monitoring should be in place to detect rapid changes or duplicates in MAC addresses, which could indicate spoofing in progress. Rogue devices can be identified by scanning the network for any connected device that does not match the approved inventory list. Many tools are available that automatically detect new devices and compare their MAC addresses, IP addresses, and other identifiers to a known database. Network Access Control, or NAC, can enforce policies that only allow pre-approved devices to connect. NAC solutions can perform authentication checks and isolate unauthorized endpoints in a quarantine or guest zone. Disabling unused ports is a simple but powerful way to reduce the risk of rogue devices entering the network. If a wall jack or switch port is not being used, it should be administratively shut down. This prevents someone from plugging in a device and immediately gaining network access. In addition to disabling ports, labeling all physical ports and maintaining a record of their status allows for better monitoring and accountability. Regular audits help ensure that unused ports remain inactive. Logging and alerting are critical components of a spoofing defense strategy. All changes to MAC or ARP behavior should be tracked and recorded. Alerts can be generated when policy violations occur, such as a new MAC address appearing on a restricted port, or an IP address suddenly mapping to a different MAC. This data not only helps in real-time detection, but also provides forensic information if an incident must be investigated later. Wireless rogue devices introduce another layer of risk. An unsecured wireless access point can become a backdoor into the internal network, especially if it is connected to a switch that lacks proper segmentation. Sometimes these access points are installed by well-meaning users who want better coverage, but their misconfiguration leaves the door wide open to attackers. Other threats include rogue SSIDs that impersonate corporate wireless networks, tricking users into connecting and exposing their credentials or traffic. The certification exam may present scenarios that ask you to identify the symptoms or effects of spoofing attacks. This includes recognizing unexpected MAC address changes, duplicate IP alerts, or unauthorized device appearances. You might be asked to select the appropriate mitigation controls, such as enabling port security or applying DAI. Understanding the relationships between these attacks and their symptoms is key to mastering the exam material. Spoofing attacks work by altering identity at the hardware or protocol level. ARP spoofing misleads devices about where data should be sent. MAC spoofing misleads access controls about who is connecting. Rogue devices avoid oversight altogether by physically entering the environment without authorization. Because these threats operate at the access layer, the best way to stop them is by applying multiple layers of control. Physical port management, switch features, and ongoing monitoring must all work together to maintain trust in device identity. ARP spoofing, MAC spoofing, and rogue devices all attack the same fundamental concept: trust in identity within local networks. These techniques don't require advanced tools or outside access. They rely on weak internal controls and human oversight. To defend against them, strong access policies, real-time inspection, and identity enforcement are necessary. These topics are not only important for the exam, but they also appear in real-world security audits, where gaps at the local level are often exploited first. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Network Plus Prepcast, your trusted audio guide to the CompTIA Network Plus certification. This episode was produced by baremetalcyber.com. For more cybersecurity podcasts, books, and resources, visit baremetalcyber.com. Thanks for joining us for this episode of the Bare Metal Cybersecurity Plus podcast. For more episodes, tools, and study support, visit us at baremetalcyber.com. And before you take the test, make sure to check out the practice questions in the book Achieve CompTIA Security Plus SY0-701 Exam Success by Dr. Jason Edwards. They cover every domain and are a powerful way to lock in your knowledge.